So I've just arrived at St Giles Cripplegate for our concert with the London Gay Symphony Orchestra today. We're doing Haydn 104, Beethoven Triple Concerto and Ralph Vaughan Williams Fantasia, so a gorgeous concert. So with most professional orchestras, the audition process is a concerto from a sort of a set list of concertos, and then your own piece that is different from that concerto in style, and then orchestral excerpts. You sometimes get blind auditions where you're behind a screen, so they don't know who it is, they don't know if you're a man or a woman, which I think is great. They don't know what you look like, it doesn't matter. So, you know, they're basing it on what you sound like over everything else, and I think that's really important. In terms of preparation, obviously, it's just practicing, it's spending your time getting those concertos top notch. Do all the markings, do everything that's there. They want the detail because they want to know that when you're sight reading a piece, you can find the detail in it as well. I think before you go into the audition room, it's important to remember that you're good and remember that you're there for a reason. You know, especially with professional orchestras, you don't even get an audition sometimes. So you've already been vetted to get to this point, to get to the point where you're walking into the room. I try not to play through the pieces too much beforehand, because I think sometimes if you're playing the pieces you're about to play in a room to an audition panel before and you make a mistake, it's in your head, and you're then suddenly like, oh God, I'm going to make that mistake again in the room, and that can really sort of mess up your psyche. So I think actually doing a proper warm-up, just doing some scales or something, playing through your excerpts, playing through a bit of the concerto if you want to. I love working with them because they're an amateur orchestra with a professional leader, and that for me is such a massive learning experience opportunity, because they're there to learn and they want to be there, and I think that's a massive difference for me and other orchestral playing I've done, and it just gives it a great vibe, and they've been so welcoming to me. Chris, the conductor, is just a lovely man, and we have what I think is a great relationship. I hope he feels the same. You know, I feel like he trusts my opinion. I think that's really important as a leader, to have that kind of connection with your conductor. He'll suggest something and he'll say, how can I get this sound from my string section? And that's then down to me to give that advice. And obviously, you know, a lot of the guys know all this stuff already. But some of the people in the orchestra, they only play in this orchestra just for fun. And so they like to get that advice. We also did Shostakovich Leningrad in our last concert. I mean, it's 75 minutes, so it's really long and it's really intense, and the history behind it is harrowing, and I honestly have never felt so emotionally and physically drained at the end of a concert. It was quite an experience really, and I haven't played it before, and I felt sort of, it's one of those pieces you feel honoured to have played. And you know, the history behind it is quite incredible. You know, people crawling to the first performance of it because they were so weak, and you know, you feel honoured to have been allowed to have played it. And it's so long and it's physically demanding and it's difficult. So with where you sit in an orchestra, they're definitely different skills. You know, leading an orchestra is one thing, and it's a thing that people, I guess, get to practice quite often at uni, respecting other people's opinions, listening to the leaders of the other sections. I think that's a massive thing when you watch orchestras, and you know, some of those great leaders, you know, they're massive personalities and they're bouncing around in their chair, and that's great and that works for them. But for me, I've been working on bringing everything in a little bit. My teacher's been telling me about this, how if you're small and you're still, people will pay attention because it's focused, you know? And then when you make a movement, suddenly they're like, oh, we're going with you now because you're moving. So for me, leading is very much about finding that balance between giving something clear and actually being too much. So that's definitely something I'm focusing on at the moment. So again, sitting at the back of a section is a completely different discipline. In Brightonfield, I sit right at the back of the seconds usually because I just extra for them. And you know, it's completely different from being at the front with the conductor right under your nose. You have obviously a longer line of vision, and you obviously have to watch your leader as well. So you've got 2 points of reference in front of you. So it's really important that you can see them both. In a lot of ways, you're important at the back of a section. And I think, you know, sometimes in junior orchestras and younger orchestras, you can feel a little bit deflated if you're at the back. I know I was in National Children's Orchestra. I was never the person leading. I didn't lead it any time I was there. I went for 5 years. I was always in the middle or at the back, and it can make you feel a little bit unimportant, but actually you're a part of a bigger team. You're a cog in a wheel, you know, and you have to take responsibility for yourself there and be a good player and bolster from the back. It's not about having bad players at the back or anything like that. It's just how it works out with your auditions or whatever. And so sitting at the back it is difficult, and I actually find it more difficult than leading, because you have 3 points of reference and you're hearing things at a different time from your leader. So you have to go with your sight, and that's a really important thing. You have to go with the baton, you have to go with your leader's bow. You cannot rely on your ears, because whatever acoustic you're in, you might be in a church where the sound's coming to you half a second after everyone else, and then you've also got woodwind right behind you. You might have a piccolo in your ear, so again, an earplug is a good thing.